Rising from the vast, silent plain of Teotihuacan, the Pyramid of the Moon casts a long shadow across history. For over 1,000 years, it has stood as a silent, imposing testament to a civilization whose name we don't even know, whose language remains unspoken, and whose ultimate fate is one of history's great vanishing acts. We walk its grand avenue, we climb its ancient stones, and we believe we understand it, a monumental tomb, a place of worship, a centerpiece of a powerful city. But what if we've only been seeing a fragment of the truth? What if this iconic structure, one of the most photographed and studied in the ancient world, conceals a secret so profound that it could force us to tear up the pages of Mesoamerican history and start again? This isn't just another ancient monument. This is a riddle carved in stone, an enigma that has baffled the most brilliant archaeologists and historians for centuries. While the Pyramid of the Sun often steals the spotlight with its sheer size, its lunar counterpart holds the deeper, darker mysteries. It was here, in the shadow of the Cerro Gordo mountain, which the ancient builders saw as a sacred embodiment of nature itself, that they chose to construct something far more complex than a simple temple. They built a portal, a conduit between the world of the living and the realm of the gods, a place where water, earth, and celestial power converged in a symphony of spiritual engineering that we are only just beginning to comprehend. Join me on an adventure into the heart of this forgotten mystery. We are going to venture beyond the tourist pathways and the textbook summaries to uncover the Pyramid of the Moon's true purpose. We will descend into recently discovered hidden tunnels that snake deep beneath its core, where the air is thick with the weight of centuries and the echoes of ancient rituals. We will piece together the clues of sacrificial offerings and ceremonial caches that point to a cosmic drama playing out on a grand, terrifying scale. This is a journey to uncover a story far grander and more intricate than we ever imagined, a story not just of a pyramid, but of the people who built it, the beliefs that drove them, and the secrets they buried for the ages, waiting for someone to finally listen. To truly grasp the power of the Pyramid of the Moon, you must first stand on the Avenue of the Dead. This was not merely a street, it was the central artery of the entire cosmos, a man-made canyon paved with stone and ambition, stretching for over 2.5 kilometers through the heart of the city. Walking its length today, you can feel the intentionality in every step. The avenue runs with an unnerving precision, a feat of urban planning so advanced it rivals modern cities. And at its northern terminus, dominating the entire view, sits the Pyramid of the Moon. It wasn't placed at the end of this grand boulevard by accident. It was the destination, the culminating point of a spiritual and physical journey, but the genius of its placement goes far beyond city planning. The pyramid's architects created a profound visual and spiritual dialogue with the natural world. The structure was precisely aligned to face the looming presence of Cerro Gordo, the old mountain. To the people of Teotihuacan, this was not just a hill, it was a sacred entity, a living god. They saw it as the ultimate source of life-giving water, a great reservoir that fed the springs and the agriculture that sustained their massive population. In their worldview, the pyramid was the man-made echo of that natural mountain, a constructed representation of the feminine earth and its generative power. It anchored the entire city to this divine source of fertility, creating a powerful axis between the human-made and the God-given. Consider for a moment the sheer audacity of this vision. At its zenith around 500 AD, Teotihuacan was one of the largest cities on Earth, a bustling metropolis of over 100,000 souls. It was a melting pot of cultures, a hub of commerce and artistry whose influence stretched across Mesoamerica. And this entire urban marvel was laid out as a precise model of the universe. The Avenue of the Dead was the central axis. The Pyramid of the Sun at its center represented the very heart of creation, and the Pyramid of the Moon, our focal point, held the most profound symbolic weight. It marked the northern direction, which in Mesoamerican cosmology was inextricably linked with the underworld, with darkness, and with the realm of the ancestors. This wasn't a place of fear, but of transformation. The pyramid served as a monumental conduit, a bridge between our world and what lay beyond. It connected the fertile, living earth, represented by Cerro Gordo, directly to the mystical powers of the underworld. Every ritual performed on its summit, every offering placed within its depths, was an act of communion between these two realms. The Pyramid of the Moon was the key that maintained the balance of the cosmos, ensuring that the waters would flow, the crops would grow, and the sun would continue its journey across the sky. It was the spiritual battery for an entire civilization, and the secrets of how it worked are only now being unearthed from the darkness below. If you could peel back the stone skin of the Pyramid of the Moon layer by layer, you would discover its greatest secret is not a hidden chamber or a lost treasure, but its very own history of birth and rebirth. This pyramid was not a single monumental project completed in one lifetime. Instead, it grew over centuries, a living entity that was ritually entombed and resurrected no fewer than 7 separate times. Each new phase of construction was an act of profound reverence and cosmic necessity. The old structure was not demolished, it was carefully encased, swallowed whole by a larger, more magnificent shell. This creates a breathtaking architectural timeline, a series of nested pyramids like a set of stone Russian dolls, with the original, modest temples still preserved deep within the heart of the colossal final form. This process of encapsulation speaks to a worldview where the past was sacred, not something to be erased. Each new layer likely commemorated the end of a ruler's reign or the completion of a major 52-year calendar cycle, an event of immense spiritual significance across Mesoamerica. By building directly over the old, the people of Teotihuacan were physically connecting their present to their past, anchoring their current power to the legitimacy of their ancestors. The very ground beneath the pyramid became a tangible record of their dynasty and their devotion. Imagine the effort, thousands of workers meticulously building a new mountain of stone around the old one, all to create a perfect, updated vessel for the same enduring spiritual forces. The original purpose was never lost, only amplified and protected by each successive shell. A key element that unified these 7 phases, despite their different scales, was a distinctive and revolutionary architectural style, the Tlaloc table row. This design features a vertical panel, the table row, sitting atop a sloping base, the Tlaloc. The effect is both geometrically striking and symbolically rich. Some researchers suggest this alternating pattern of the horizontal and the slanted may have represented the very structure of the cosmos, the earthly plane meeting the celestial realm. This wasn't just a decorative choice, it was a theological statement made in stone, a signature style that announced the presence of Teotihuacano influence across the region. The consistent use of Tlaloc table row through all construction phases tells us that while the pyramid grew in size and prominence, the core ideology of its builders remained steadfast for centuries. The sheer scale of this multi-generational project is what truly disguises the pyramid's ancient origins. What we see today is only the final, outermost layer, a magnificent mask. Deep within its core lies the very first structure, a much smaller platform built perhaps as early as 100 CE, centuries before the city reached its peak. This means the sacred importance of this specific location, this precise spot at the foot of Cerro Gordo, was established when Teotihuacan was still a modest settlement. The final form we marvel at is so enormous that it completely obscures this humble beginning, hiding the true age and the original, perhaps simpler, purpose of the site. The pyramid is a grand illusion, presenting a face of timeless, monolithic permanence while secretly guarding the layered stories of its long and complex evolution deep within its stone heart. Yet for all our understanding of what stood above the ground, the true heart of the mystery remained completely hidden, buried under centuries of soil and silence. That is, until 1998, when a team of archaeologists made a discovery so profound it would rewrite everything we thought we knew about the pyramid. It wasn't found by accident, through a lucky shovel strike or a collapsing wall. This was a mystery unveiled by science, using ground-penetrating radar, a technology that allows us to see into the Earth like an X-ray. The researchers scanned the plaza directly in front of the Pyramid of the Moon. They were looking for clues about the foundation, but what the radar revealed was far more spectacular. A massive, unnatural void, a dark tunnel leading straight down from the center of the plaza and running deep beneath the very core of the pyramid itself. This was the moment every archaeologist dreams of. Picture the scene, the data is confirmed, the team realizing they are looking at a man-made passage, sealed shut by the ancient inhabitants nearly 2,000 years ago. It was a real-life Indiana Jones adventure, but instead of a booby-trapped temple, the entrance was hidden beneath tons of compacted earth and stone. The radar didn't just show a simple hole, it mapped out an entire subterranean landscape. The tunnel descended at a sharp angle to a depth of over 50 feet, where it opened up into what appeared to be a series of chambers. This wasn't a construction shaft or a drainage canal. This was a deliberate, carefully engineered pathway into the earth, a secret artery leading to the pyramid's spiritual heart. Why would the Teotihuacanos go to such incredible lengths? Why bury a tunnel so deep and so deliberately? The answer lies in their most fundamental beliefs. For them, this tunnel was far more than an underground passage. It was a symbolic representation of the underworld itself. Across Mesoamerican cultures, caves and tunnels were seen as sacred portals, wombs of the Earth Mother, and gateways to the realm of the dead and the gods. They were places of creation and transformation, where the boundaries between worlds became thin. By constructing this artificial cave directly beneath their most important pyramid, the builders were creating the ultimate sacred axis. It connected the summit, where rituals to the celestial gods were performed, directly to the chthonic depths, the source of water, fertility, and ancestral power. Sealing this tunnel for all those centuries was not an act of abandonment. It was likely a final, powerful ritual. Imagine the last priest to climb out of that dark passage, the flickering torchlight illuminating the walls for the final time before the entrance was meticulously filled with rubble and earth, consecrating the space forever. This act preserved the tunnel's sanctity, trapping its spiritual energy and protecting the powerful artifacts and offerings they almost certainly left inside. For nearly 2 millennia, this hidden world waited in perfect darkness, holding its secrets close, while above, the great city of Teotihuacan itself fell silent. Its people vanished, and the Pyramid of the Moon stood as a silent sentinel guarding a mystery we were only just beginning to comprehend. For 6 long years, the discovery of the tunnel was a secret known only to a handful of archaeologists and the silent data on their computers. The challenge was immense. How do you excavate a passage that was deliberately sealed by its creators? A passage so fragile and sacred that a single misstep could destroy everything. The answer arrived in the form of a groundbreaking, high-tech mission dubbed Project Tlalocan IBP, officially launched in 2004. Named for Tlalocan, the paradisiacal underworld realm of the rain god Tlaloc, the project's very name hinted at what they hoped to find: a preserved, subterranean world of immense spiritual significance. This was not going to be a traditional dig with shovels and brushes. This was an archaeological expedition into the unknown, conducted with the tools of 21st century engineering. The first and most formidable obstacle was the tunnel's entrance, which lay beneath hundreds of tons of compacted earth and rock, deliberately placed there by the Teotihuacanos themselves. The passage itself was perilously narrow, barely wide enough for a single person to crawl through, and completely unstable. Sending a human team in was out of the question. The risk of collapse was far too great. So the researchers turned to robotics. In a brilliant fusion of past and future, they designed and built a custom remote-controlled robot, naming it Tlaloc II in honor of the mission. This wasn't a simple toy, it was a technological marvel, a tracked vehicle equipped with high-definition cameras, powerful lights, and an articulated arm, all designed to be the eyes and hands of the archaeologists in a place no human could safely go. The day the robot was lowered into the dark, constricted opening must have been electric, with a mixture of excitement and unbearable tension. Imagine the control room, the archaeologists huddled around monitor screens, their faces illuminated by the ghostly green glow of the video feed. The only sound was the whir of the robot's motors as it began its slow, deliberate descent into a world untouched for 17 centuries. The tunnel descended at a sharp 20-degree angle, and Tlaloc II had to navigate a treacherous path through loose debris and past unstable-looking stone walls. Every centimeter of progress was a victory, every minor obstruction a heart-stopping moment. They were essentially piloting a drone, not through air, but through the packed history and spiritual beliefs of an entire civilization. Then the images started to come back. The first beams of light from Tlaloc II lamps pierced a darkness that had been absolute since the 3rd century. The initial views were staggering. The tunnel was not a rough-hewn hole. It was a masterfully engineered conduit, its walls shored up with carefully placed stone and reinforced with large wooden beams that had somehow withstood the ravages of time in the dry, stable environment. The robot advanced meter by painstaking meter, and the true wonders began to reveal themselves. The passageway was not empty. The floor was littered with a breathtaking array of artifacts, finely carved stone figurines, elegant pottery vessels, shimmering ornaments made of jade and pyrite, and vast quantities of shell and animal bones, all left as offerings. The walls themselves were not bare. In sections, the cameras captured ghostly traces of strange, beautiful symbols carved directly into the rock, geometric patterns, and possibly even undeciphered writing, placed there to guide or protect whoever, or whatever, traveled this sacred path. This was more than just an archaeological jackpot. It was a spiritual crime scene, a moment frozen in time. The sheer quantity and quality of the objects suggested this was no ordinary storage space. Each item was a piece of a puzzle, a message left for the gods. The shells, imported from distant coasts, symbolized water and fertility. The green jade represented life and preciousness. The animal bones were likely remnants of sacred feasts or symbolic sacrifices. Every single object was a deliberate deposit, a form of communication with the powerful forces of the underworld that the tunnel was built to access. The robot's cameras were not just sending back video, they were transmitting the first pages of a long-lost holy book, written in the language of ritual and offering, a book that had been closed and sealed since the days when the Roman Empire still ruled much of Europe. The successful journey of Tlaloc II marked a paradigm shift in Mesoamerican archaeology. It proved that the deepest secrets of these ancient cultures weren't necessarily hidden in the grand plazas or atop the pyramid summits, but deep within the earth, in the symbolic landscapes they constructed to mirror their cosmos. The robot's mission was only the first phase, a reconnaissance that confirmed the tunnel's stability and unimaginable richness. It paved the way for the even more dramatic phase that would follow, the careful manual excavation by a team of specialized archaeologists who would now, with the robot's map in hand, begin the delicate process of unsealing the earth and stepping into the underworld themselves, to walk a path that no living person had trodden for over 1,700 years. As archaeologists carefully began the painstaking process of excavating the tunnel by hand, following the path that Tlaloc II had so brilliantly illuminated, they stepped into a realm that defied all expectation. The air was thick and still, carrying the dry, mineral scent of undisturbed centuries. Their headlamps cut through the absolute black, revealing not a simple passageway, but a meticulously arranged subterranean gallery, a sacred repository brimming with treasures of profound spiritual significance. They weren't just digging up old objects, they were inventorying the contents of a time capsule, a collection of gifts intended for divine recipients. The sheer volume was staggering. The floor of the tunnel and its chambers was paved with a breathtaking array of ritual objects numbering in the thousands. Imagine a carpet of glittering green jade, shimmering black obsidian, and brilliant golden pyrite mirrors, all scattered amidst piles of exotic seashells and strange, sculpted figures made of organic materials like rubber and wood that had miraculously survived the ages. Each material was chosen with deliberate intent. Jade, the ultimate symbol of life, vitality, and preciousness, was carved into delicate beads and ornate figurines. Obsidian, the volcanic glass that could form edges sharper than modern steel, represented ritual sacrifice, warfare, and the sharp, penetrating gaze of the gods. The pyrite, carefully ground and polished into shimmering discs, acted as mirrors, believed to be portals to other realms or devices for scrying into the future. Among this glittering mass, specific items stood out with breathtaking clarity. There were finely carved stone masks, but these were not like the stylized death masks of other cultures. They were hauntingly naturalistic, carved from hard greenstone with such skill that they seemed to capture the essence of a human face, yet they were too small and flat to have ever been worn. Scholars believe these were effigies, powerful representations of deities or venerated ancestors, placed here to act as eternal witnesses or conduits for spiritual energy. Elegant pottery vessels, some painted with intricate, faded designs, lay in clusters, their original contents perhaps fragrant resins, sacred oils, or hallucinogenic substances used by priests, long since evaporated into the dust. But the offerings weren't only mineral and ceramic. The tunnel held powerful biological signatures as well. Mixed in with the glittering stones were the bones of formidable animals, the skulls and claws of pumas, the jaws of wolves, and the talons and bones of majestic eagles. These weren't the remains of a simple meal. These were the symbols of the most powerful forces in the natural world. The puma represented the Earth's raw terrestrial power and the darkness of the underworld. The eagle, lord of the skies, stood for the sun and celestial heights. By placing them together in this chthonic passage, the Teotihuacanos were performing a powerful act of cosmic symmetry, uniting the highest and lowest realms within the Earth to maintain universal balance. They were gathering the very essence of worldly power to present as an offering. What becomes undeniably clear from this immense collection is that nothing was random. This was not a trash heap or a haphazard dumping ground. Every shell, every obsidian blade, every animal bone was part of a carefully curated and symbolic collection, a systematic effort to appease and nourish the gods of the underworld. In the Teotihuacano worldview, the cosmos was a fragile, delicate thing, perpetually in danger of falling out of balance and collapsing into chaos. Deities like Tlaloc, the giver of life-giving rain, and other chthonic forces needed to be sustained with the most valuable essences the world had to offer. This tunnel was a direct feeding tube, a conduit through which the energy of these precious objects could flow into the spiritual realm, ensuring that the rains would fall, the sun would rise, and the great cycle of life, death, and rebirth would continue uninterrupted for another year, another century, another epoch. This sophisticated belief system reveals a civilization that saw the world as an interconnected web of sacred debt and reciprocity. The immense wealth and effort poured into this hidden tunnel was an investment in their own survival. The pyramid above was the public-facing monument of their power. This tunnel below was the private, spiritual engine room that made that power possible. By giving the earth their most valued possessions, the glittering jewels of the mountains, the powerful symbols of the animal kingdom, and the skilled work of their finest artisans, they believed they were engaging in a necessary transaction with the very forces of creation, a transaction that guaranteed the continuity of their world and the favor of the gods they could not see, but whose presence they felt in every drop of water and every ray of sun. Yet amidst the thousands of glittering offerings, the archaeologists encountered something that stopped them in their tracks, a discovery so massive and enigmatic it seemed to dwarf the smaller treasures around it. Inside chambers branching off from the main tunnel, they found a series of immense sculpted monoliths, each carved from a single, breathtaking block of green stone. The material itself, likely a type of serpentine, was chosen with profound intention. This was not the brilliant, translucent green of jade, but a deeper, more somber hue, the color of deep forest shadows or still, profound waters. In the flickering light of their headlamps, these stones seemed to absorb the light, holding a dark, ancient luminescence within their polished surfaces. The carvings covering these monoliths were not simple geometric patterns. They were intricate, complex tableaus depicting scenes from a mythology we can only partially decipher. One might show a feathered serpent, a powerful deity known across Mesoamerica, emerging from the jaws of a stylized earth monster. Another could depict a figure, perhaps a priest or a god, holding aloft strange, emblematic objects surrounded by a cascade of water symbols and what appear to be drops of precious blood. These weren't mere decorations, they were narratives frozen in stone, sacred storyboards illustrating the foundational myths and cosmological battles that define the Teotihuacan world. To stand before them is to feel the weight of a lost library, its texts written not in words but in symbols that we struggle to read. The purpose of these great stones is a puzzle that fuels intense debate among researchers. Their sheer size and weight, requiring an immense effort to transport and position so deep underground, marks them as objects of paramount importance. One compelling theory suggests they served as permanent altars, fixed points for the performance of crucial rituals within the symbolic underworld. Here, in the chamber's stillness, a priest might have made the final, most potent offerings, placing objects directly upon the stone or anointing its surface with sacrificial liquids, using the monolith as a direct conduit to the gods. Another possibility is that they acted as territorial markers, defining specific zones of spiritual power within the tunnel's layout. Each monolith, with its unique carving, could have signified a different stage in a ritual journey or represented a specific deity's domain that had to be acknowledged and appeased before proceeding deeper. They could have been the ancient equivalent of road signs on a sacred highway, guiding the initiated through the perils and promises of the underworld. Or perhaps they were more than markers, perhaps they were the deities themselves. In a belief system where spirit could inhabit stone, these monoliths may have been considered physical vessels for powerful chthonic forces, permanent residents of this artificial cave that required constant veneration. Their placement is the ultimate clue to their significance. They weren't left in the open plaza or even in a temple on the summit. They were embedded in the very fabric of the tunnel, the spiritual engine at the pyramid's core. This tells us they were not for public display. They were part of the hidden, esoteric machinery of state religion, accessible only to a select few, the high priests and rulers who held the knowledge and authority to mediate between the people and the powers of creation and destruction. The monoliths were the anchors of this entire sacred operation, grounding the pyramid's immense symbolic power to a specific, tangible point deep within the earth. Their silent, green presence confirms that the true heart of the Pyramid of the Moon was not its towering apex reaching for the sky, but this dark, profound connection to the world below. All of these incredible discoveries, the thousands of offerings, the sacred monoliths, the very tunnel itself point toward a structure of immense, central importance to the state religion. And this leads us directly to one of the most baffling and defining mysteries of the Pyramid of the Moon, the complete and total absence of a royal burial. This is a puzzle that forces us to question the very foundations of what we think we know about ancient power. Across the ancient world, from the pharaohs in the pyramids of Giza to the kings in the tombs of Palenque, monumental architecture and royal death were inseparable. The ruler's tomb was the ultimate statement of their divine authority, a permanent house for their spirit that guaranteed their legacy and the stability of their lineage. Yet here at Teotihuacan, in its second largest pyramid, meticulously explored for decades, not a single definitive royal tomb has ever been found. This absence is not for a lack of searching. Archaeologists have probed the pyramid's core with every tool at their disposal. They have excavated within its 7 nested layers, scanned its structure, and now even explored its deepest subterranean passage. They have found sacrificial victims, dedicatory caches of staggering wealth, and evidence of powerful state rituals. But the central figure, the king or queen who presumably ordered all of this construction, is nowhere to be found. This creates a profound disconnect. We see all the trappings of a powerful, centralized state: the urban planning, the monumental art, the military and economic influence, but the individual at its apex remains frustratingly invisible, a ghost in their own machine. This void has given rise to several compelling theories. The first and most radical suggests that we have been looking at Teotihuacan all wrong. Perhaps it was not a city ruled by a single, all-powerful dynasty like a Maya Ajor or an Egyptian pharaoh. Instead, it might have been governed by a council, a collective leadership of elite families or powerful priests. In this model, power was shared and rotated, meaning no single individual amassed the kind of personal prestige that would warrant a monumental tomb. The pyramids, then, were not monuments to a person, but to the office itself and to the cosmic order it served. The focus was on the system, the ideology, the city as a collective entity, not on the glorification of one ruler. This would make Teotihuacan a fascinating outlier, a massive, complex society that rejected the cult of personality which defined so many of its contemporaries. A second theory posits a different funerary tradition altogether. Maybe the rulers of Teotihuacan were not interred within the stone of their pyramids. Perhaps their remains were treated in a way that leaves little to no archaeological trace. Consider the possibility of cremation. If the royal body was burned and the ashes scattered in a sacred lake or sown into the fields, there would be no grand tomb to discover. This practice, known from other cultures, severs the physical link between the ruler and a specific monument, emphasizing their reintegration with the natural world rather than their eternal presence in a stone chamber. Or their burial places could be elsewhere, entirely hidden in unassuming locations in the surrounding mountains, or in lavishly furnished tombs deep beneath the city's residential compounds that have simply eluded discovery so far. Then there is the most tantalizing possibility of all, that the royal burial chamber does exist, but we haven't found it yet. The exploration of the tunnel system beneath the Pyramid of the Moon is far from complete. The main tunnel and its side chambers, rich as they are, may not be the final destination. Could there be a sealed doorway cleverly camouflaged within the tunnel's rock walls, leading to a farther, deeper chamber? The technology used to locate the original tunnel has advanced significantly since 2004. A new, more detailed scan might yet reveal a hidden anomaly, a void behind a wall that the robot's cameras did not detect. The final secrets of the pyramid may be protected by the very belief system that created them, hidden in the darkest, most sacred part of the symbolic underworld, waiting for a future expedition to finally reveal the truth about the missing rulers of this magnificent and enigmatic city. But the spiritual engine of the Pyramid of the Moon wasn't confined to the dark, hidden tunnel below. Its most public and most chilling rituals were carried out in the brilliant sunlight of the vast, open space that served as its stage, the Plaza of the Moon. This grand courtyard, framed by 12 smaller platforms that may have represented the months of the year, was far more than a simple gathering place. Excavations here have uncovered a reality far darker and more complex than early, romantic visions of a peaceful, theocratic city. The plaza's very soil is a testament to a belief system where life, death, and the continued existence of the cosmos were bound together in a cycle that demanded the ultimate price. Archaeologists working in the plaza and within the adjacent structure known as the Building of the Altars made a series of deeply unsettling discoveries. They uncovered the remains of dozens of individuals, but these were not simple, respectful burials. The bodies told a story of ritualized violence on a grand scale. Many of the victims, both male and female and of varying ages, were found decapitated. Others had been dismembered, their limbs carefully arranged or scattered. A hauntingly consistent detail linked these sacrifices. In case after case, the individuals' hands were bound behind their backs with coarse rope, the impression of the fibers still visible in the earth around their wrist bones centuries later. This tells us these were not willing volunteers marching blissfully to their deaths. They were captives, prisoners of war, or perhaps people chosen from within the society, rendered helpless and presented as offerings. The evidence suggests these were not isolated events, but part of massive, coordinated sacrificial ceremonies. In one particularly gruesome deposit within the Building of the Altars, researchers found the skeletons of over 30 people, all with their hands tied. Alongside them were the remains of majestic eagles, pumas, wolves, and venomous snakes, powerful predators captured from the wild. This combination is critically important. The humans and these formidable animals were sacrificed together, their lives extinguished in a single, dramatic ritual. The message was one of raw power and cosmic symmetry. The Teotihuacanos were gathering the most potent forces they could conceive of human life, the king of the skies, the lord of the earth, and the deadly serpent of the underworld, and uniting them in a single, explosive offering to the divine. So, who was the recipient of this terrifying devotion? The prevailing theory points to a powerful, perhaps the most powerful, deity in the Teotihuacano pantheon, the Great Goddess. Massive stone sculptures and vivid murals found throughout the city depict this formidable figure. She is often shown with clawed feet, a headdress of owl feathers, a bird associated with night and death, and from her outstretched hands cascade streams of water, seeds, and precious gems. She was not a single-note deity. She was a complex, paradoxical fusion of creation and destruction, a goddess who gave life through water and agriculture, but who also demanded death and bloodshed to sustain that very fertility. She embodied the earth itself, which gives bountiful harvests but also requires the decay of seeds and the return of bodies to the soil to fuel new growth. The sacrifices in the Plaza of the Moon were therefore a direct transaction with this great goddess. The logic was brutally pragmatic. Water was the lifeblood of Teotihuacan. In a region prone to droughts, the continued flow of springs from the sacred Cerro Gordo mountain was a matter of survival for over 100,000 people. The Teotihuacanos believed that life force, what they might have called Chalchihuatl, or precious water, was a finite substance that had to be replenished in the spiritual realm. The most powerful way to release this life force was through the ultimate act, death. The blood of the sacrificed, particularly the blood draining into the earth, was seen as the most potent form of nourishment for the goddess. By offering her this most precious liquid, the priests were feeding her, encouraging her to release the real, physical water that would fill the canals, germinate the maize, and sustain the city for another cycle. This practice reveals a worldview where the stability of the entire universe was not a given, but a delicate equilibrium that required constant human intervention to maintain. The sacrifices were not acts of meaningless cruelty. They were acts of profound responsibility. The priests and rulers who orchestrated these ceremonies believed they were holding the world together, preventing the sun from failing to rise, the rains from refusing to fall, and the cosmos from collapsing back into primordial chaos. The bound hands of the victims, the gleaming obsidian knives of the priests, the watching eyes of the stone monoliths in the tunnel below, it was all part of a grand, terrifying, and from their perspective, utterly necessary system of cosmic maintenance, where the Pyramid of the Moon served as the primary conduit between human desperation and divine power. All of this brings us to the most profound mystery of all, the people themselves. We call them the Teotihuacanos, but that is not what they called themselves. That name, the place where the gods were created, was given to the city's ruins centuries later by the Aztecs, who stumbled upon the empty, overgrown metropolis and were awestruck, believing it must have been built by divine hands. The true name of the people, their own word for their home, their identity, it is all lost to us. We are left studying the ghost of a civilization, a culture of profound sophistication that managed to remain utterly anonymous. This anonymity is rooted in one of the most frustrating gaps in Mesoamerican archaeology, the absence of a deciphered written record. Unlike their contemporaries, the Maya, whose intricate hieroglyphs on stelae and codices tell us the names of kings, the dates of battles, and their complex mythology, the Teotihuacanos left behind a different kind of legacy. We find glyph-like symbols, yes, painted on pottery or carved into stone, but these appear to be more emblematic or calendrical than a true, phonetic writing system that records spoken language. We have no Rosetta Stone for Teotihuacan, no bilingual text to crack the code. This means we cannot hear their voices. We don't know the name of a single ruler, the word for water in their tongue, or the epic poems they may have recited. We are forced to read a book whose text has been erased, leaving only the punctuation, the grand architecture, the vivid murals, the ritual objects, from which we must infer the entire story. This is precisely why the Pyramid of the Moon is so much more than a building. It is, in essence, one of the most crucial and eloquent texts we possess from this lost civilization. Since we cannot read their words, we must read their stones. Every aspect of the pyramid is a sentence in their belief system. The seven-layered constructions speak of a deep reverence for the past and a cyclical view of time. The Tlaloc table row architecture is a declarative statement of their cosmological principles. The hidden tunnel is a profound theological chapter on their relationship with the underworld. And the sacrificial offerings in the plaza are a stark, visceral paragraph on the cost they believed was necessary to maintain cosmic order. The pyramid doesn't just contain secrets, it is the secret, a three-dimensional autobiography of a people who left no other written record of who they were. What makes this silence even more poignant is the undeniable scale of their influence. At its peak around 500 AD, Teotihuacan was a powerhouse, a metropolis whose cultural, economic, and military reach extended across the entire region. We find distinct Teotihuacano pottery in the tombs of Maya kings hundreds of miles away. A neighborhood within the great Maya city of Tikal appears to have been populated by Teotihuacano merchants or envoys. There is compelling evidence, including distinctive murals at a site like Cacaxtla, that suggests their warriors or diplomats intervened directly in the politics of distant city-states. They were the ancient equivalent of a superpower, a Rome of the Americas, yet we don't know the name of their empire if they had one, or the identity of the generals who led their armies. And then, around the middle of the 6th century, the lights went out. Sometime around 550 AD, the great city experienced a catastrophic and relatively rapid collapse. The grand ceremonial center was systematically and deliberately burned. Major structures, including temples and buildings along the Avenue of the Dead, were set ablaze in what appears to be a coordinated act of destruction. The population, which had numbered over 100,000, dwindled to a fraction. The meticulous urban planning broke down, and within a few generations, the city was largely abandoned, its remaining inhabitants living in small clusters among the ruins of their former glory. The question of why this happened has haunted researchers for decades. Without any written accounts of the event, we are left to piece together clues from the archaeological record. One prominent theory points to a massive, prolonged drought. climate data from lake sediments in the region indicate a period of severe aridity right around the time of the collapse. For a city that depended on rain-fed agriculture and springs fed by the sacred Cerro Gordo, a decades-long drought would have been catastrophic. It would have led to famine, social unrest, and a crisis of faith. If the priest's most powerful rituals at the Pyramid of the Moon failed to bring the rains, the entire theological and political system that held the city together could have shattered. Other theories suggest internal revolt. The sheer scale of the burning points to a violent uprising from within. Perhaps the vast class divisions between the elite, who lived in lavish palace compounds, and the commoners who resided in crowded apartment complexes, finally reached a boiling point. After centuries of back-breaking labor building pyramids and supplying sacrificial victims, the lower classes may have risen up and overthrew the ruling priesthood and aristocracy, destroying the symbols of their power in a fiery revolution. Or the cause could have been a lethal combination of factors, environmental stress weakening the society from within, making it vulnerable to an external attack from rival states that we have yet to identify. The truth is, we just don't know. The city fell and its people dispersed, taking their language, their names, and their story with them, leaving behind only the silent, majestic ruins for the Aztecs and for us to wonder at. But the spiritual significance of the Pyramid of the Moon wasn't just carved into the earth, it was also written in the stars. The ancient architects designed this structure to be a precise instrument for observing the heavens, and one of its most stunning celestial relationships is with a glittering star cluster known today as the Pleiades. To the Maya, who were contemporaries of the Teotihuacanos and shared many cosmological ideas, this cluster was called Tzab, which means rattlesnake's tail, a name that evokes both its distinctive shape and its potent symbolic connection to serpents and celestial power. At the precise moment when the Pleiades passed directly over the summit of the Pyramid of the Moon, it would have been a signal of immense importance, likely marking the beginning of the new year or a critical turning point in the agricultural cycle. This wasn't a random coincidence but a deliberate alignment, embedding the pyramid's purpose directly into the fabric of the night sky. This astronomical precision extended to the sun's journey as well. On specific, significant dates of the year, the setting sun would align perfectly with the central axis of the Pyramid of the Moon, casting long, dramatic shadows down the Avenue of the Dead. Researchers suggest that one of these key dates would have coincided with the sun's zenith passage, the day it passes directly overhead, an event of profound importance in the Mesoamerican world that marked the start of the rainy season. Another likely alignment occurred on the day of the solar zenith's antithesis, a period deeply connected to the harvest and the ancestors. As the sun descended, it would have appeared to sink directly into the heart of the pyramid, a visual spectacle that physically demonstrated the structure's role as a conduit, drawing the power of the celestial sun down into the earthly and underworld realms it was built to connect. These alignments were far more than a celestial light show for the ancient people. They were the functional gears of a cosmic clock. The precise timing of these astronomical events provided the unshakable framework for the entire ritual calendar. When the priests observed the Pleiades cresting the pyramid summit, it signaled that the time had come for specific, crucial ceremonies, likely related to petitioning the gods for rain or blessing the forthcoming planting of maize. The entire city's ritual life, from the smallest household offering to the grandest state-sponsored sacrifice in the Plaza of the Moon, was synchronized to this cosmic timetable. The pyramid acted as the central clock tower for the civilization, its alignments ensuring that human activity was in perfect harmony with the immutable rhythms of the universe. This intricate synthesis of architecture and astronomy ultimately reinforces the Pyramid of the Moon's grandest function, that of an axis mundi, a world axis or cosmic pivot. In the belief systems of many ancient cultures, the axis mundi was the central point that connected the three great realms of existence, the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. The Pyramid of the Moon was the ultimate physical manifestation of this concept in Teotihuacan. Its summit reached for the stars and the sun, its body stood upon the earth, and its deepest tunnels plunged into the symbolic underworld. It was the central pole around which their entire cosmos revolved, a place where the boundaries between worlds were thin and communication with the divine was not just possible but actively facilitated. Every celestial alignment, every ritual sacrifice, and every offering placed in the tunnel was an act of maintaining the stability of this cosmic axis, ensuring that the connection between the gods and humanity remained strong and the world continued to turn as it should. This powerful figure, often referred to by scholars as the Great Goddess, emerges from the murals and sculptures of Teotihuacan not as a gentle nurturer, but as a complex, formidable force governing the very foundations of existence. Her image is unmistakable and arresting. In the vibrant murals that have survived the centuries, she is depicted with hands transformed into the sharp talons of a predatory bird, a feature that immediately signals a connection to the raw, untamed power of the natural world. Her magnificent headdress is a cascade of owl feathers, the owl being a creature universally associated with night, wisdom, and the ominous boundary between life and death. And from her open, clawed palms, she pours forth a torrent that is the essence of her being, a stream intertwining water, precious jade beads, and sprouting seeds. This is not a simple image of fertility. It is a declaration that life, wealth, and sustenance flow directly from her, but they come with a cost. The theory that the Pyramid of the Moon served as her primary temple, the epicenter of her cult, is supported by a compelling web of evidence. The pyramid's intrinsic connection to the water-giving Cerro Gordo mountain aligns perfectly with her role as the bestower of life-giving streams. The subterranean tunnel, seen as a symbolic womb of the earth and a portal to the underworld, mirrors her dominion over the chthonic realms from which both water and the souls of the ancestors were believed to originate. The sacrifices found in the adjacent plaza, with their stark emphasis on providing the life force of blood to the earth, point directly to a deity who required such offerings to release her bounty. The Pyramid of the Moon, therefore, was not just a temple dedicated to her, it was her physical embodiment, a man-made mountain representing her fertile yet demanding body. Understanding her role helps us decipher the terrifying logic behind the sacrificial rituals. She was a deity of profound paradox, embodying a cycle that we still observe in nature but find difficult to accept in a divine figure. She gave life through water and agriculture, but she also demanded death and decay to fuel that very cycle. The maize plant must die to feed the people, and the seed must be buried in the dark earth to sprout anew. The great goddess governed this entire, unending process. To the people of Teotihuacan, the sacrifices were not an act of senseless brutality, but a necessary and sacred transaction. By offering her the most potent life force they possessed, human blood, they were participating in a divine exchange, feeding the goddess so that she, in turn, would release the physical water needed to prevent famine and ensure the city's survival. This places the great goddess at the absolute center of Teotihuacano power and cosmology. She was likely the ultimate source of legitimacy for the ruling priesthood. Their authority would have been derived from their claimed ability to communicate with her and influence her will through the precise rituals conducted at her pyramid. Her enigmatic nature is a perfect reflection of the city itself, immensely powerful, culturally dominant, yet refusing to reveal its true name or the faces of its rulers. In the end, the story of the Pyramid of the Moon is inextricably linked to the story of this great goddess. It was her conduit, her throne, and her feeding ground, a place where the desperate hopes of a civilization met the demanding reality of the divine, all in a perpetual struggle to maintain the balance of the world. Now layer all of these discoveries, the offerings, the sacrifices, the celestial alignments over the harsh environmental reality of the Teotihuacan Valley, and a compelling, overarching theory comes into sharp focus. This is what scholars call the water cult hypothesis. It proposes that the Pyramid of the Moon was far more than a temple to a goddess. It was the beating heart of a sophisticated state religion fundamentally centered on the control of water. In a landscape where survival was perpetually balanced on a knife's edge, dependent on unpredictable rains and the springs from the sacred Cerro Gordo, water was life itself. And the power to summon it, to appease the forces that controlled it, was the ultimate form of political and spiritual authority. Every single artifact recovered from the tunnel can be reinterpreted through this watery lens. The thousands of greenstone offerings, the jade beads, the serpentine monoliths, the delicate figurines were not merely symbols of general fertility. In the Mesoamerican worldview, the color green was intrinsically linked to water, to lushness, to life-sustaining moisture. Jade itself was known as Tlaloc, a word that also meant precious water. By depositing this immense wealth of green stone into the artificial cave beneath the pyramid, the priests were performing a powerful act of sympathetic magic. They were, in essence, seeding the earth with concentrated packets of aquatic energy, feeding the spiritual reservoir in the hopes that it would overflow into the physical world, filling the springs and calling the clouds. Even the most terrifying aspect of the cult, the human sacrifices, fits this logic with a grim and terrible clarity. Blood was quite literally seen as the human body's water, its most vital liquid. The act of sacrifice was not one of random violence, but a targeted, ceremonial release of this essential life force. As the blood of bound captives and warriors soaked into the stones of the Plaza of the Moon, it was believed to seep down, channeled by the pyramid's very structure, to nourish the parched earth and the deities who governed the waters. This was the most potent transaction imaginable, a life given for life-giving rain. The sacrifice of powerful predators alongside humans amplified this plea, combining the essence of human strength with the untamed force of nature in a unified offering to the divine. The pyramid's undeniable physical connection to Cerro Gordo is the final, crucial piece of this puzzle. The mountain was not just a scenic backdrop, it was the primary source of the city's water, a massive natural aquifer. The builders didn't just orient the pyramid toward the mountain, they architecturally bonded their most important structure to it, creating a symbolic and functional continuum. The Pyramid of the Moon became the man-made terminus of the mountain's hydrological power. The tunnel beneath it was an artificial extension of the mountain's own watery veins, a constructed spring where the rituals performed were designed to activate and maintain the flow from the natural source. It was a spiritual control valve on the landscape itself. This transforms our understanding of the pyramid from a passive place of worship into an active, monumental machine. Its purpose was hydraulic engineering on a cosmic scale. The pyramid, with its precise alignments to the Pleiades marking the start of the rainy season, was the timing mechanism. The sacrifices in the plaza were the ignition, the release of catalytic energy. The offerings in the tunnel were the fuel, the spiritual payment, and the intended output was rain. In a civilization facing the existential threat of drought, the Pyramid of the Moon was their most advanced technology, a device operated not by levers and gears, but by faith, astronomy, and the ultimate price, all engineered to command the very elements and secure the survival of a city born in a dry land. This powerful focus on water and the feminine earth stands in fascinating contrast to its larger neighbor, the Pyramid of the Sun. At first glance, the difference is simple, one is bigger. The Pyramid of the Sun is a true colossus, one of the largest pyramids on the planet by volume, its sheer mass dominating the city's skyline and demanding immediate attention from every visitor walking the Avenue of the Dead. Its alignment is grand and universal, its base oriented with incredible precision to key points of the sun's journey, like the sun's zenith passages that were so critical for the agricultural calendar. It represents the quintessential masculine power, the dominant, life-giving force of the sun, the fire at the center of the cosmos, the energy that drives the day. Its construction appears as a single, overwhelming act of will, a mountain built to capture and harness the power of a star. The Pyramid of the Moon, however, whispers a more complex story. It may be smaller in stature, but it is infinitely more intricate in its biography. We've seen how it grew over centuries through 7 distinct construction phases, each new layer carefully encasing the old, creating a deep architectural timeline that the Pyramid of the Sun simply doesn't possess to the same degree. This isn't just a difference in size, it's a difference in nature. Where the Sun Pyramid is a statement of raw, singular power, the Moon Pyramid is an embodiment of layered history, of patient, generational growth, mirroring the slow, cyclical processes of the Earth itself. Its connection is not just to the distant sun, but to the very ground it stands on and the celestial body that governs the tides, the seasons of planting, and the rhythms of water, the moon. This duality was absolutely intentional, creating a complementary relationship that expressed the Teotihuacan vision of a balanced cosmos. The two pyramids were not rivals, they were partners in a cosmic dance. The Pyramid of the Sun, with its solar and masculine associations, reached for the heavens. The Pyramid of the Moon, with its lunar, chthonic, and feminine qualities, was rooted in the earth and the underworld. Together, they formed a perfect axis of complementary opposites: day and night, fire and water, sky and earth, life and death. One could not exist without the other. The sun's energy would scorch the land without the moon's influence on water and fertility. The earth's fertility would be a dormant potential without the sun's light and heat. The city's entire layout was a physical model of this belief, with the two great structures anchoring the celestial and the terrestrial, ensuring the world remained in harmonious balance. You can see this complementary design in their very positions along the Avenue of the Dead. The Pyramid of the Sun sits centrally, like the heart of the city, while the Pyramid of the Moon serves as the northern terminus, the head of the cosmic body. The north, in Mesoamerican thought, was the direction of the dead, the cold, and the underworld. By placing the Pyramid of the Moon here, the architects were stating its role as the gateway to that realm, perfectly counterbalancing the Sun Pyramid's association with the life-giving warmth of the south. This sophisticated urban planning tells us that the people of Teotihuacan didn't just build monuments. They built a working model of their universe, with the Pyramid of the Moon serving as the essential, darker, more mysterious counterpart to the brilliant, blazing power of the sun. It was the yin to its yang, the necessary shadow that gave the light its meaning and ensured the continued turning of the cosmic wheel. Just a short walk from the base of the Pyramid of the Moon lies another kind of treasure, one that offers a stunning window into the minds and hearts of the people who lived in the shadow of that great structure. This is the Teotihuacan apartment compound. Unlike the grand, austere stone of the pyramids, Teotihuacan is a place of vibrant color and intimate detail. Its walls adorned with some of the most well-preserved and evocative murals in all of Teotihuacan. And the most famous of these is known as the Paradise of Tlaloc. To stand before it is to be instantly transported from a world of imposing monuments and dark tunnels into a realm of breathtaking, joyful abundance. The mural unfolds like a vision of a dream, depicting a lush, blue-green mountain landscape crisscrossed with flowing streams of water. Within these waters, small, stylized human figures are seen swimming, playing, and laughing with apparent delight. They chase butterflies, they sing, and they gather flowers in a scene of pure, unadulterated bliss. This is not a depiction of everyday life. This is a portrayal of the afterlife as the Teotihuacanos imagined it, a heavenly paradise earned through devotion and sacrifice. The connection between this idyllic scene and the stark realities of the Pyramid of the Moon is direct and profound. The deity presiding over this paradise is Tlaloc, the god of rain, lightning, and life-giving water. His goggled eyes and jaguar fangs are a recurring motif in Teotihuacan art, and his presence here is the key. The paradise he offers is the ultimate reward, the positive outcome of the terrifying but necessary transactions taking place just a few hundred meters away at the pyramid. The figures swimming in those painted streams are likely the souls of the deceased, but notably, they are not just the elites or the priests. They appear to be ordinary people, suggesting a belief system where a blessed afterlife was a possibility for many, not just the ruling class. This vision of eternal happiness in a watery wonderland would have been an incredibly powerful motivator, a celestial promise that gave profound meaning to the hardships and rituals of daily life in the city. This mural fundamentally reframes our understanding of the sacrificial ceremonies. The bound hands, the obsidian knives, the flow of blood into the earth, these were not the final, brutal end for the victims. In the Teotihuacan worldview, they were a transition, a passport to this very paradise. The blood offered at the pyramid was the payment that sustained Tlaloc and the great goddess, ensuring they would continue to provide the real, physical water that filled the canals and fed the crops. In return, the gods would grant the souls of the sacrificed, and perhaps other worthy individuals, entry into this eternal spring. The violence of the plaza and the serenity of the mural are two sides of the same spiritual coin. One was the costly, earthly action, the other was the glorious, divine reaction. The rituals at the pyramid were the mechanism for activating this cosmic bargain, a direct trade of life force for divine favor both in this world and the next. The imagery in the Tepantitla mural also provides a powerful symbolic key to interpreting the thousands of offerings found deep within the pyramid's tunnel. The entire underground passage, seen as an artificial cave and a symbolic womb of the earth, can be understood as a constructed, ritualized version of the mountain landscape depicted in the mural. By filling that tunnel with greenstone, jade, shells, and other symbols of water and fertility, the priests were not just making an offering, they were actively building a conduit to that paradise, creating a physical and spiritual pipeline between the dark, sacrificial heart of their city and the bright, joyful afterlife promised by their gods. The water so vividly painted on the walls of Tepantitla was the same spiritual substance they were trying to summon and control through their most sacred and secret rituals. The mural, therefore, is not just a piece of art. It is the public-facing advertisement for the entire religious system, a colorful, accessible explanation of the ultimate goal that justified the immense spiritual and human cost of maintaining the Pyramid of the Moon and the cosmic order it represented. The end came not with a bang, but with a long, chilling silence that settled over the Avenue of the Dead. Sometime around the middle of the 6th century, the great metropolis of Teotihuacan, a city that had thrived for nearly a millennium, began to bleed its population. The bustling markets fell quiet, the meticulous maintenance of its grand structures ceased, and the plazas, once thronged with people for elaborate ceremonies, were left to the wind and the dust. The Pyramid of the Moon, which had for so long served as the spiritual engine of the city, witnessed the final act. Its altars grew cold, its sacred tunnels were irrevocably sealed, and the rituals that had once pulsed with life and desperation were performed no more. This wasn't a sudden, single catastrophic event, but a slow, grinding collapse, and the reasons for it remain one of the most debated puzzles in archaeology. One of the most compelling theories points the finger directly at the environment, at a foe that even the most powerful water cult could not conquer, a prolonged, devastating drought. Scientists studying sediment cores from nearby lake beds have found startling evidence. These natural archives reveal a period of severe aridity that gripped the region right around the time of Teotihuacan's decline, a drought that may have lasted for decades. For a city of over 100,000 people, utterly dependent on rain-fed agriculture and the springs from the sacred Cerro Gordo, this would have been a death sentence. Imagine the desperation as the priests at the Pyramid of the Moon redoubled their efforts, performing ever more elaborate and costly sacrifices, pleading with the great goddess and Tlaloc for the rains to return. But the skies remained a relentless, cloudless blue. The crops withered in the fields, the springs dwindled to a trickle, and famine began to stalk the crowded apartment compounds. The very foundation of the state religion, the belief that human ritual could control the climate, would have shattered in the face of such an unyielding environmental reality, leading to a catastrophic loss of faith in the ruling elite. This environmental stress could have easily ignited the powder keg of social inequality that had been building for centuries. Teotihuacan was a city of stark contrast. A small, powerful elite lived in lavish palace complexes adorned with beautiful murals, while the vast majority of the population resided in cramped, windowless apartment blocks, laboring to build monuments and supply the state with tribute and sacrificial victims. For generations, this system held, perhaps justified by the spiritual rewards promised in places like the Tepantitla mural. But when the system failed, when the rains did not come and the priest's power proved illusory, the social contract was broken. The sheer scale of the burning found in the city's core, with major temples and administrative buildings set ablaze, strongly suggests a violent internal revolt. It is not difficult to picture a scenario where a starving, disillusioned populace finally turned on their rulers, storming the ceremonial center and destroying the symbols of a power structure that could no longer feed them or speak to the gods. There is also the possibility of a more complex, multi-faceted collapse. A city weakened by famine and internal strife would have been a tempting target for external enemies. Teotihuacan was a superpower, and its dominance would have created resentment among rival states and subject peoples on its periphery. While there is no clear evidence of a single, conquering army, it is plausible that opportunistic attacks from outside groups delivered the final blow to a civilization already reeling from internal and environmental pressures. The collapse, therefore, might not have had one single cause, but rather was a perfect storm of disasters. Climate change eroded the economic base, which in turn sparked a revolution that shattered the political order, making the city vulnerable to external threats that finished the job. The end was likely as layered and complex as the city itself. Through it all, the Pyramid of the Moon stood as a silent, stoic witness. Its 7-layered shells contained the entire timeline of Teotihuacan's rise and fall, from the humble first temple to the colossal final form. The sealed tunnel beneath its plaza, carefully filled by the last priests to enter it, is a profound final act. Was it a desperate attempt to preserve the sanctity of the site for a future return that never happened? Or was it a funeral rite for the city itself, a final acknowledgement that the connection to the gods had been severed forever? The pyramid holds the material evidence of the city's final days within its stone layers and buried chambers, but the human story, the fear, the anger, the heartbreak of those last inhabitants, is a secret it has kept for 15 centuries. The people simply left, dispersing into the surrounding hills and valleys, taking their language and their names with them, leaving the place where the gods were created to be reclaimed by the earth, a haunting and magnificent mystery for the ages. But the story of this ancient pyramid is far from over. In fact, we are living in the most exciting era of discovery since the city was first excavated, all thanks to a suite of 21st century technologies that allow us to see through stone, soil, and time itself. One of the most revolutionary tools is LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. This technology involves mounting a laser scanner on an airplane or drone and flying it over a landscape. The lasers penetrate the tree canopies and vegetation, bouncing off the solid ground below to create an incredibly detailed, three-dimensional map of the Earth's surface. When archaeologists used LiDAR to scan the entire Teotihuacan Valley, the results were nothing short of breathtaking. The data peeled back the modern overgrowth like a layer of tissue paper, revealing the ghostly imprint of the ancient city in staggering clarity. Suddenly, we could see that Teotihuacan was even larger and more complex than anyone had dreamed. The LiDAR maps showed us that the urban sprawl extended far beyond the known ceremonial center, with vast, densely packed residential districts, intricate networks of streets and alleyways, and evidence of large-scale industrial areas for obsidian working and pottery production. But most crucially for our understanding of the Pyramid of the Moon, Lidea revealed an astonishingly sophisticated web of hydrological engineering. The data showed a complex system of canals, underground drains, and reservoirs that were systematically rerouting water from the nearby San Juan River and the springs of Cerro Gordo. This wasn't just a haphazard collection of ditches, it was a city-wide water management grid, and its central control point appears to have been the plaza surrounding the Pyramid of the Moon. This discovery provides powerful, tangible support for the water cult hypothesis. The pyramid wasn't just a spiritual plea for water, it was the operational heart of a massive, practical system designed to capture, control, and distribute the very substance of life throughout the metropolis. While Lidea gives us a bird's-eye view of the entire city, another cutting-edge technique promises to peer deep into the heart of the Pyramid of the Moon itself. This technique is called muon tomography, and it sounds like something from science fiction. Muons are subatomic particles that are created high in the atmosphere when cosmic rays collide with air atoms. These particles are constantly raining down on the Earth, passing through solid matter much like X-rays pass through flesh. However, muons pass more easily through empty spaces than through dense rock. By placing special muon detectors inside or around a structure like a pyramid, scientists can measure the flux of these particles. Areas where more muons pass through indicate voids or chambers, while fewer muons indicate solid stone. This is the same non-invasive technology that made headlines in 2017 when it detected a large, previously unknown void within the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, researchers are eager to deploy muon tomography at the Pyramid of the Moon. The potential is staggering. We know the pyramid has 7 nested layers, and we know about the main tunnel discovered in 1998. But what if there are other secrets still hidden? The muon detectors could potentially reveal a hidden burial chamber after all, or a second, even deeper tunnel system, or a series of ritual chambers sealed within the pyramid's core that have been inaccessible for 2,000 years. This technology allows us to conduct a full body scan of the monument without ever lifting a trowel, preserving its structural integrity while uncovering its final secrets. It represents a fundamental shift from destructive archaeology to a gentle, listening form of exploration. These technological leaps are transforming archaeology from a science of educated guesses into one of precise, data-driven revelation. We are no longer just digging in the dirt hoping to find something. We are using the tools of particle physics and remote sensing to ask the pyramid very specific questions and receive clear answers. The ongoing investigation at Teotihuacan is a global collaboration, bringing together archaeologists, geophysicists, engineers, and computer scientists in a unified quest. Every new Lidea flight, every muon detector placed at the pyramid's base, brings us one step closer to hearing the whispers of the people who built this magnificent place. The Pyramid of the Moon has guarded its mysteries for 2 millennia, but now, for the first time, we have the means to listen to its story without uttering a single disruptive word. Yet to view the Pyramid of the Moon solely through a spiritual lens is to miss its most potent function. This structure was the ultimate instrument of statecraft, a masterstroke of political engineering designed to centralize and legitimize the authority of Teotihuacan's ruling class. Think of it this way: in a city of over 100,000 people, with stark divisions between a small elite and a vast populace of laborers and artisans, what could possibly justify such immense inequality and demand such back-breaking tribute? The answer was manufactured here at this pyramid. By monopolizing the exclusive, terrifying, and ultimately necessary rituals that sustain the cosmos, the ruling priesthood transformed their political power into a divine mandate. They became the indispensable intermediaries, the only ones who could stand between the people and cosmic chaos. This control over the sacred was exercised with breathtaking theatricality. The rituals performed at the pyramid were not quiet, private affairs. They were grand public spectacles designed to awe and intimidate. Picture the scene in the Plaza of the Moon on a key ceremonial day. Thousands of citizens would have gathered, their view framed by the 12 platforms representing the cyclical nature of time. At the summit of the pyramid, high above them, the elite priests would be silhouetted against the sky, adorned in magnificent feathered headdresses and jade ornaments, performing rituals invisible to the crowd below. Then the climax, the presentation of bound captives, the flash of an obsidian blade, and the deliberate public offering of life force to the earth. This was not hidden brutality, it was a calculated demonstration. It showed the populace that their leaders alone possessed the knowledge and the fortitude to perform the gruesome acts required for collective survival. The message was clear: challenge this authority, and you risk not only political upheaval but the very collapse of the world itself. The pyramid's very architecture reinforced this political hierarchy through controlled access and visibility. While the sacrifices in the plaza were public, the truly profound mysteries occurred in places off limits to the common person. The hidden tunnel beneath the plaza was the most exclusive space in the city, accessible only to a select few initiates. This created a tiered system of religious knowledge. The general populace witnessed the public spectacles, but the esoteric secrets, the placement of offerings in the tunnel, the meaning of the greenstone monoliths, the direct communication with chthonic forces were the closely guarded property of the elite. This knowledge was power. By restricting access to the spiritual engine room, the rulers created a class of religious specialists whose unique skills justified their privileged status. They held the exclusive keys to the universe, and that made their political authority nearly unassailable. Furthermore, the pyramid served as the ideological anchor for the city's entire political economy. The immense wealth pouring into its tunnels, the tons of greenstone, the obsidian, the shells from distant coasts, the elaborate pottery, was not just spiritual currency, it was economic tribute funneled from the far reaches of Teotihuacan's influence directly into the hands of the state religion. The rulers controlled the acquisition and distribution of these prestige goods, using them as offerings to the gods but also as rewards for loyal subordinates, cementing political alliances. The ability to amass such treasures and then seemingly dispose of them in the earth was a powerful display of surplus and economic might. It demonstrated that the state was so rich, so confident in its divine favor, that it could bury fortunes in the ground and still thrive. This conspicuous consumption of wealth reinforced the social order, proving the elite's unique position as the stewards of both material and spiritual prosperity. Ultimately, the Pyramid of the Moon was the linchpin holding the entire Teotihuacan state together. It provided a unifying ideology that transcended family, clan, or ethnic divisions. In a city that was likely a melting pot of different Mesoamerican cultures, the shared belief in the pyramid's cosmic necessity, the idea that everyone's survival depended on the rituals performed there, fostered a common identity and a reason for collective labor. The rulers, by positioning themselves as the guarantors of this cosmic order, effectively fused the political with the theological. Their right to rule was not based on mere heredity or military might alone, but on their claimed ability to keep the sun rising, the rains falling, and the paradise of Tlaloc open for business. The pyramid was thus the beating heart of a theocratic state, a place where water, power, and faith flowed together in a single, unstoppable current, sustaining one of the most formidable and enigmatic civilizations the ancient world has ever known. Yet amidst all this evidence of a powerful and complex state, we confront one of the most profound silences in the archaeological record. Unlike their Mayan neighbors to the south, who covered their monuments with intricate hieroglyphic texts naming kings and recording battles, the people of Teotihuacan left behind only fragments of a written language. Scattered throughout the city and in contexts closely associated with the Pyramid of the Moon, we find tantalizing glimpses of communication in the form of glyph-like symbols and painted signs. These are not the sprawling historical narratives of a Maya stela. They are more like cryptic footnotes, brief and enigmatic markings on pottery vessels, fragments of murals, and carved into ritual objects. They hint at a system of writing, but one that remains stubbornly undeciphered, a locked door to the minds of the people who built this magnificent city. Take, for instance, the artifacts recovered from the tunnel beneath the pyramid. Among the thousands of offerings, researchers found elegant pottery and finely carved stones bearing distinctive, repeated signs. One common symbol resembles a step-fret pattern, a series of interconnected right angles that may have symbolized clouds, water, or perhaps even the concept of a sacred place. Another recurring motif looks like a trilobed shape, often painted in bold colors, which some researchers tentatively interpret as a representation of a flower or a precious entity. These aren't random doodles. Their consistent appearance on high-status items used in the pyramid's most sacred rituals suggests they held specific, important meanings. Perhaps the name of a deity being invoked, a dedication from a specific priestly order, or a label for the type of offering being made. They are pieces of a theological vocabulary we cannot yet read. The frustration for archaeologists is palpable. Imagine holding a beautifully painted ceramic vase, knowing it was used in a ceremony at the very heart of the Teotihuacan belief system, and being able to see the clear, deliberate symbols painted on its side, yet having no Rosetta Stone to translate them. These glyphs could be the key that unlocks everything. They might tell us the true name of the great goddess worshipped at the pyramid. They could specify the exact purpose of the greenstone monoliths or record the name of the ruling figure who commissioned the pyramid's final, grand expansion. A single deciphered name, a single verb, could transform our understanding from broad speculation about the elite and the priesthood into a narrative with named individuals, specific events, and a documented history. This decipherment is, without exaggeration, one of the holy grails of Mesoamerican research. Part of the challenge lies in the nature of the writing system itself. While the Maya used a complex mix of logograms and syllabic signs that could record spoken language with great flexibility, the Teotihuacan system appears to be more limited. Most experts currently believe it was primarily logographic, meaning each symbol represented a whole word or concept, like an ideogram, rather than the sounds of a spoken language. Think of it as a system more akin to modern traffic signs or emojis than to a full alphabet. It could convey water, sacrifice, or jaguar, but it might not be able to spell out a specific person's name or record a complex sentence like King So and So dedicated this temple on the 5th day of the rainy season. This makes the script incredibly difficult to crack without a bilingual text or a much larger corpus of examples to analyze. This silence forces us to rely on the architecture, the art, and the offerings themselves as our primary text. The Pyramid of the Moon becomes a book written in stone, its 7 construction layers forming chapters, its tunnel a hidden appendix filled with symbolic footnotes. The language of this book is one of material and action, the language of greenstone for water, of obsidian for sacrifice, of celestial alignments for time. We are left to read the grammar of power in the city's urban plan and the syntax of belief in the arrangement of ritual caches. The undeciphered glyphs are the punctuation marks in this grand, non-verbal narrative emphasis points, question marks, and exclamations whose precise nuance we can sense but cannot yet fully hear, a constant reminder that the most intimate thoughts of this great civilization are still just beyond our grasp. Centuries after the last priest ascended the steps of the Pyramid of the Moon and the great city fell into a profound silence, a new people arrived in the valley. These were the Mexica, a group of Nahua-speaking migrants who would later be known to the world as the Aztecs. What they encountered must have been a sight of staggering and humbling grandeur. The Avenue of the Dead, though overgrown, still carved a clear path through the ruins. The Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, weathered but unbroken, stood as colossal, man-made mountains against the sky. To the Aztecs, a culture with its own powerful creation myths and a pantheon of demanding gods, the scale and sophistication of this abandoned metropolis were so far beyond human capability that they reached a single, awe-inspiring conclusion: this could not have been built by mortals. They named it Teotihuacan, a name that echoes through history, meaning the place where the gods were created, or the city of the gods. This name was not given lightly. It was a direct reflection of their own central creation story, the myth of the fifth sun. According to this powerful narrative, the world had been created and destroyed 4 previous times. We are now living in the fifth sun, the era of movement, and it was at Teotihuacan that the Aztecs believed this current age was born. Their legends told of a time when the gods gathered in the darkness at Teotihuacan to create the new sun and moon. To bring light into the world, 2 gods had to sacrifice themselves by leaping into a great divine fire. One proud and wealthy god, Teotihuacan, hesitated, while a humble, diseased god covered in boils, Nanahuatzin, courageously threw himself in first. As Nanahuatzin became the brilliant, life-giving sun, Teotihuacan, shamed by his hesitation, followed and became the moon, its light forever dimmer. The other gods then sacrificed their own blood to set the sun and moon in motion across the sky. For the Aztecs, the 2 great pyramids were the very stages for this cosmic drama. They identified the Pyramid of the Sun as the monumental pyre from which Nanahuatzin ascended as the sun, and with profound resonance for our mystery, they saw the Pyramid of the Moon as the very spot where the hesitant Teotihuacan transformed into the moon. This association is a breathtaking act of mythological interpretation. The Aztecs, looking at the smaller yet more architecturally complex Pyramid of the Moon, perhaps instinctively understood its more nuanced, layered nature, making it a fitting symbol for the flawed, secondary celestial body in their story. They were essentially writing the final, posthumous chapter for the city, imbuing its silent stones with a divine narrative that explained its origins and its ultimate abandonment by its godly builders. This reverence translated into direct and tangible cultural influence. The Aztecs did not merely admire the ruins from a distance, they made Teotihuacan a place of pilgrimage. Their own rulers and priests journeyed to the ancient city to perform rituals and claim a connection to this divine past. Archaeologists have found numerous Aztec offerings carefully deposited at the base of the Pyramid of the Moon and along the Avenue of the Dead. These offerings, ceramic vessels, incense burners, and figurines in the distinct Aztec style, prove that they saw Teotihuacan as an active, powerful sacred site, a place where the boundary between the human world and the time of the gods was exceptionally thin. By worshipping there, they were tapping into the primal, creative energy that had forged their world. The influence also extended to the very fabric of Aztec state architecture and art. Look at the great Templo Mayor in the heart of their capital, Tenochtitlan. Its signature architectural style is the talud table row, that alternating pattern of a sloping base and a vertical panel that was the unmistakable signature of Teotihuacan construction. The Aztecs consciously adopted this style for their most important temple, directly linking their own imperial power to the timeless authority of the city of the gods. We see this artistic borrowing in their pottery and sculpture as well. The imagery of the feathered serpent, a deity of immense importance at Teotihuacan known to scholars as Quetzalcoatl, was wholeheartedly adopted and adapted into the Aztec pantheon. The goggled eyes and distinctive features of the rain god Tlaloc, so prevalent in Teotihuacan murals like the one at Tepantitla, became a central part of Aztec iconography. They were, in effect, curating and continuing the spiritual legacy of a civilization they never knew in its living form. This relationship creates a fascinating historical paradox. The Aztecs, one of the most documented and well-understood civilizations of Mesoamerica, became the primary narrators for a culture whose own voice is completely lost to us. Our primary historical sources describing Teotihuacan as the birthplace of the sun and moon come from Aztec informants speaking to Spanish friars like Bernardino de Sahagun in the 16th century. The Aztecs provided the names, the myths, and the divine context that for centuries formed the foundation of our understanding. Yet we now know their interpretation was a projection, a brilliant and compelling anachronism. They saw the city through the lens of their own beliefs, giving us a story that is more about Aztec theology than it is about the original purpose of the Pyramid of the Moon. This leaves us with a profound disconnect between the Aztec myth and the archaeological reality we have been exploring. The Aztecs spoke of a single divine event creating the sun and moon. But the tunnel beneath the Pyramid of the Moon reveals a long, continuous, and grueling human effort, centuries of ritual, sacrifice, and offering aimed not at creating the celestial bodies, but at pleading with them, nourishing them, and maintaining their cycles. The Aztec story is one of a finished creation. The Teotihuacan reality, as uncovered by archaeologists, was one of perpetual, anxious maintenance. The true purpose of the pyramid as a hydraulic machine, a cosmic pivot, and the heart of a water cult was buried and forgotten, replaced by a grander, simpler story of origins. The enduring power of Teotihuacan, therefore, lies not just in its physical influence on the Aztecs, but in its unique position as a canvas upon which later civilizations felt compelled to paint their own understanding of the divine. A silent, monumental question that continues to provoke awe and inspire answers. And this is where our story, built on so many incredible discoveries, enters a fascinating and necessary new chapter, the chapter of scholarly debate. Because for every interpretation of the Pyramid of the Moon, there is a counter-argument, a different perspective that challenges our assumptions and reminds us that the history of this place is not a closed book, but a living, breathing academic conversation. Take the magnificent tunnel, for instance. We've described it as a symbolic underworld, but a vigorous debate among experts questions what precisely that symbolism represents. One prominent school of thought champions the idea of the tunnel as a sacred cave of origin. In this view, the tunnel is a recreation of Chicamostoc, the mythical place of 7 caves from which many Mesoamerican peoples, including the later Aztecs, believed their ancestors emerged into the world. The artifacts within, then, are not just offerings to the gods but foundational deposits, ritually seeding this man-made cave with the essence of life to commemorate the very beginnings of the Teotihuacan people and their city. It was a pilgrimage site into their own cosmic past. Yet another compelling interpretation pushes this symbolism in a more specific, powerful direction. These scholars see the tunnel not just as a general cave, but as a symbolic womb of the great goddess herself. The entire passage descending into the dark, moist earth represents her generative anatomy. The offerings placed inside the greenstone for fertility, the shells for life-giving fluids, are then seen as acts of nourishment and appeasement directed specifically at her. The tunnel becomes the ultimate source of her power, the place where the cycles of life, death, and rebirth were physically and spiritually activated. This interpretation powerfully links the hidden, feminine power of the earth with the very public, and often violent, rituals performed above, framing the entire pyramid complex as a single, vast representation of her body and her demanding dominion. This debate extends from the spiritual to the brutally physical, centering on one of the most difficult questions to answer: who were the sacrificial victims found in the plaza? The traditional narrative, supported by the evidence of bound hands, has long pointed to captured warriors from rival states. This fits a pattern seen across Mesoamerica, where the taking of prisoners in warfare for ritual sacrifice was a common practice, a way to demonstrate military might and humiliate enemies. The inclusion of powerful predator animals alongside them could symbolize the capturing of an enemy's totemic spirit, a complete domination of their martial strength. This theory paints Teotihuacan as an expansionist militaristic power, using the Pyramid of the Moon as a stage to display its terrifying authority to both its subjects and its rivals. However, a growing body of evidence and reinterpretation challenges this. Some researchers point to isotopic analysis of the victim's teeth and bones, which can reveal where a person grew up. In some sacrificial deposits at Teotihuacan, this analysis has shown that the victims were not foreigners, but people who had lived their entire lives in the Teotihuacan Valley, eating the local food and drinking the local water. This shocking finding opens the door to a much darker possibility, that at least some of those sacrificed were not captured enemies but willing, or perhaps compelled participants from within the Teotihuacan population itself. They could have been slaves, criminals, or individuals chosen by lot for the ultimate honor and duty. This transforms the ritual from an act of external conquest into one of internal, communal obligation, a far more complex and unsettling notion where the city fed on its own to sustain its cosmic order. Furthermore, the very nature of the victims themselves is under scrutiny. Were they all young male warriors, as the captive narrative suggests? The archaeological record is more ambiguous. The remains show a mix of men and women of different ages. This has led some scholars to suggest that the sacrifices were not solely about warfare, but were deeply symbolic acts that required a specific human reflection of the society itself. The offering of a diverse group of people might have been seen as a more complete, more potent gift to the gods, representing the entire community in its appeal for fertility and water. This perspective suggests the rituals were less about political terror and more about a profound, collective surrender to the perceived necessities of the cosmos, a shared burden that fell, tragically, on a select few. Airing these controversies is not a sign of weakness in the archaeological narrative. It is the very engine of its progress. It shows us that the Pyramid of the Moon is a mirror, and we see in it reflections of our own evolving understanding of power, religion, and human society. Each new technological advance, like the isotopic analysis of bones or a more detailed ground-penetrating radar scan, has the potential to tip the scales of these debates, forcing us to rewrite the story. The true legacy of this ancient structure is not a single, simple truth, but an ongoing, captivating mystery that continues to challenge the most brilliant minds, proving that even after 2,000 years, the Pyramid of the Moon has not yet yielded all of its secrets. Just when we thought the secrets of the tunnel had been fully mapped, the Earth yielded another stunning surprise. In the most recent phase of the Tlaloc II project, advanced ground scanning technology and meticulous excavation revealed that the passageway discovered in 1998 was not the end of the journey, but merely the entrance hall to a much more extensive subterranean complex. The robot Tlaloc II and the archaeologists who followed it had been exploring a single artery, but in 2022 they confirmed the existence of 3 completely new chambers branching off from the main tunnel, spaces that had been sealed off so perfectly they were virtually invisible. These were not empty rooms, they were curated vaults packed with a collection of offerings so exotic that they have fundamentally reshaped our understanding of Teotihuacan's reach and ambition. The contents of these new chambers speak of a network that spanned the continent. Alongside the familiar greenstone and obsidian, the team unearthed objects crafted from materials whose origins lie hundreds of miles away. They found raw blocks of shimmering mica, a mineral whose nearest source is in Oaxaca, a staggering distance for the time. They uncovered delicate ornaments and beads made from Caribbean sea coral and from the iridescent shells of spiny oysters harvested from both the Pacific and the Gulf coasts. Perhaps most tellingly, they discovered exquisite jade artifacts carved from stone whose chemical signature matches known quarries in the Motagua River Valley of modern-day Guatemala, the heartland of the classic Maya. This isn't just evidence of trade. This is proof of a deliberate, state-sponsored effort to gather the most sacred and powerful substances from every corner of the known Mesoamerican world and concentrate them in a single, potent point beneath the Pyramid of the Moon. What does this mean for the water cult hypothesis? These new discoveries amplify it on an almost unimaginable scale. The presence of objects from such diverse and distant ecosystems, from the highlands of Guatemala to the depths of both oceans, suggests the priests of Teotihuacan were not just trying to summon water from their local mountain. They were attempting to harness the entire hydrological cycle of the continent. By bringing the essence of the Pacific Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, the southern rainforests, and the eastern coasts into this artificial cave, they were performing a grand act of cosmological engineering. They were building a symbolic model of the entire water-sustained world inside the pyramid, a microcosm designed to exert control over the macrocosm, compelling the rains to fall by gathering every possible source of moisture into one ritually charged location. The sheer logistical effort behind this collection is a testament to the raw power of the Teotihuacano state. Transporting a massive, fragile block of mica from Oaxaca, or ensuring that a delicate piece of Caribbean coral survived the long, overland journey to the Highland Valley, required an immense, coordinated infrastructure. It speaks of specialized traders, protected routes, and a level of economic and political influence that allowed Teotihuacan to command resources from cultures hundreds of miles away. This wasn't simple barter, it was tribute extracted through diplomacy, intimidation, or outright coercion, all flowing back to the spiritual capital to feed the insatiable appetite of the gods worshipped beneath the Pyramid of the Moon. The pyramid was not just the heart of the city, it was the vortex into which the wealth and spiritual essence of a vast region was being systematically drained. With each new season of excavation, the potential for a paradigm-shifting revelation grows exponentially. The 2022 findings have made one thing abundantly clear: we have not yet found the ultimate destination of this sacred pathway. The main tunnel continues beyond the new chambers, still heading deeper, its end still shrouded in mystery and compacted earth. The most compelling question now hangs in the air, more urgent than ever. What lies at the very end of this man-made journey into the underworld? The leading theory, given the immense investment and the clear importance of this axis, is that the tunnel will eventually terminate in a final, sealed chamber. And within that chamber, archaeologists hope to find the answer to the city's oldest mystery, not a treasure of gold, but the remains of the individuals who wielded this terrifying cosmic power, the lost rulers of Teotihuacan. The technology to safely reach this endpoint is now within our grasp. The next phase of the project will likely employ even more sophisticated robotic probes and muon tomography to map the tunnel's final stretch without risking a collapse. The anticipation within the archaeological community is palpable. We are no longer simply studying a static ruin. We are actively unraveling a live mystery, with each passing year bringing us closer to a discovery that could finally put a face and a name to the civilization that built the city of the gods. The Pyramid of the Moon has guarded its deepest secret for 2 millennia, but the final door is now within sight, and the world is watching, waiting for the moment it swings open. But beyond the visual spectacle and the powerful symbolism of stone and sacrifice, the Pyramid of the Moon engaged another, more subtle human sense to profound effect: sound. As you stand at the base of the main staircase leading to the summit, if you clap your hands or speak in a raised voice, something strange happens. The sound doesn't just bounce back as a simple echo. It becomes warped and transformed, amplified into a sharp, chirping reverberation that seems to ripple off the stone steps. This isn't a random acoustic quirk of an ancient ruin. Researchers who have studied the pyramid's acoustics believe this was a deliberately engineered feature, a hidden layer of spiritual technology designed to manipulate sound and, by extension, manipulate the minds and hearts of those witnessing the rituals. Imagine the scene during a major ceremony. The plaza is packed with thousands of people, their murmurs creating a low hum of anticipation. The air is thick with the smoke of copal incense. Then from the summit high above, a priest begins to chant or blow on a conch shell trumpet. The sound travels down the massive staircase, and the pyramid's architecture itself takes over. The sound waves strike the steep, angular steps and the specific geometry of the structure. The precise height and depth of each riser and tread acts like a giant sonic filter. The returning echo is not a faithful reproduction of the original sound. It's distorted, fractured into a series of sharp, staccato pulses that can sound unnervingly like the chirping of birds, the hiss of a serpent, or even otherworldly, unintelligible speech. To a populace steeped in a belief system where animals were powerful spiritual messengers and the gods communicated through natural signs, this auditory phenomenon would have been interpreted as nothing less than a divine response. This acoustic manipulation would have been most powerful for the priests themselves, performing their rituals at the summit. Their chants and invocations, amplified and fractured by the pyramid, would have created an enveloping sonic feedback loop, a disorienting and awe-inspiring experience that could easily induce a trance-like state. As they peered down at the sea of faces below, their own voices transformed into something alien and powerful by the stone beneath their feet. They would have felt a tangible connection to the supernatural forces they were petitioning. The pyramid was not a silent monument, it was an instrument, and the priests were its players, using its acoustic properties to amplify their own authority and to blur the line between the human and the divine for everyone present. The intentionality behind this becomes clear when we consider the immense precision of Teotihuacan architecture. These were builders who aligned entire cities with celestial bodies and engineered massive underground tunnels. They absolutely understood the principles of geometry and reflection. To believe that the pyramid's distinct acoustic signature is an accident is to underestimate their genius. It is far more likely that this was a calculated design choice, an auditory component to the overall sensory overload of the rituals. The visual grandeur of the ceremony, the smell of incense and blood, the physical exertion of the climb, and then this eerie, disembodied sound echoing from the stone. All of these elements worked in concert to create an overwhelming psychological experience that cemented the power of the state religion in the minds of the participants. Consider the symbolic weight of this phenomenon in the context of the pyramid's role as a gateway to the underworld. The distorted echoes, seeming to emanate from the very stone of the structure, could have been presented as the voices of the ancestors or the gods of the deep earth answering the calls from the world above. A chant to Tlaloc for rain might be met with a wave of sound resembling falling water. A plea to the great goddess might be answered with a low, rumbling reverberation. This created a powerful illusion of dialogue, turning a one-way prayer into a perceived two-way conversation. For the common person standing in the plaza, this was undeniable proof that their leaders could not only speak to the gods but could also make the gods speak back, a demonstration of spiritual power that was as convincing as it was terrifying. The Pyramid of the Moon was therefore a machine for manufacturing miracles, using the simple physics of sound to reinforce the most complex and demanding theology. Pulling together the threads of this investigation, the astronomical alignments, the sacrificial remains, the water-focused offerings, and the man-made cave leading to the underworld, we arrive at the central, enduring question: what, in its ultimate form, was the Pyramid of the Moon? Modern archaeology presents us not with a single, simple answer, but with a set of powerful, interconnected theories, each revealing a different facet of this multi-dimensional machine. It becomes clear that we are not looking at a structure with a single purpose, but at the pulsating heart of a state religion of breathtaking complexity, a place where science, spirituality, and raw political power fused into a single, monumental instrument of control. One of the most compelling frameworks is to see the pyramid as a colossal cosmological clock, a stone computer engineered to track time and harmonize human activity with the cosmos. Its precise orientation to the setting sun on key dates and its alignment with the Pleiades star cluster were not passive observations, they were the functional gears of this mechanism. When the Pleiades appeared over its summit, it signaled the start of the rainy season and the time to plant maize. This celestial trigger dictated the entire ritual calendar, telling the priests exactly when to begin the ceremonies of supplication. The pyramid itself was the central, immovable needle of this cosmic dial, ensuring that every sacrifice, every offering placed in the tunnel, was performed at the most potent moment to maximize its spiritual efficacy. It was a device for ensuring that human time remained locked in sync with divine time, a constant, reassuring check against the chaos of a disordered universe. Yet, to view it only as a clock is to ignore the visceral, earthly power emanating from its tunnels and plazas. This brings us to the water cult hypothesis, which frames the pyramid not just as an observatory, but as a monumental hydraulic engine. In this interpretation, every element was designed to command the most precious resource in the valley, water. The tunnel was an artificial spring, a symbolic extension of the aquifers within Cerro Gordo. The thousands of greenstone offerings were not mere symbols of fertility. They were ritual deposits of Tlaloc or precious water, intended to seed the earth with life-giving moisture. The human sacrifices were the most potent form of fuel for this engine, their blood seen as the ultimate life force needed to recharge the spiritual reservoirs and persuade the gods to open the skies. The pyramid was, therefore, the central control station in a desperate, generations-long campaign to stave off drought and famine through a combination of sympathetic magic, astronomy, and terrifying ritual. Of course, all this spiritual and hydraulic engineering served a master, the state. This leads to the third critical theory, which positions the Pyramid of the Moon as the ultimate instrument of political theater and social control. The grandeur of the public sacrifices in the plaza, the restricted access to the esoteric secrets of the tunnel, and the sheer economic might required to amass offerings from across Mesoamerica were all mechanisms of elite dominance. By monopolizing the rituals that allegedly kept the world in balance, the ruling priesthood transformed their political authority into a divine mandate. They created a system where challenging their power was equated with risking cosmic annihilation. The pyramid was the stage upon which this narrative was performed, a constant, awe-inspiring reminder to the populace that their survival depended on the knowledge and will of the small elite class who alone could communicate with the forces of creation. Perhaps the most profound synthesis of these ideas is found in the figure of the great goddess. She embodies the ultimate unification of the pyramid's purposes. As a deity of both creation and destruction, she represents the fertile earth that gives water and maize, but also demands blood in return. The pyramid was her temple, her embodiment, and her conduit. The celestial alignments marked the times to appeal to her. The water rituals were the methods of nourishing her, and the political hierarchy derived its legitimacy from serving her. She was the theological core that bound the cosmic clock, the hydraulic engine, and the political machine into a single, terrifyingly coherent system. The Pyramid of the Moon was the anchor of her cult, the place where her paradoxical nature, as both giver of life and demander of death, was ritually managed to maintain the fragile equilibrium of the world. So, was it a tomb, a temple, a clock, or an engine? The evidence suggests it was all these things simultaneously, and to separate them is to misunderstand the integrated worldview of its builders. The search for a single, lost royal burial may be missing the point. In a society that may have been governed collectively or that practiced cremation, the ultimate tribute to a ruler might not have been a sealed chamber, but the enduring function of the entire complex. The true royal tomb might be the pyramid itself, a living, functioning monument to the power of the state religion that outlasted any individual king. The rulers were immortalized not by their skeletons but by the continued operation of the cosmic machinery they oversaw. This brings us to a humbling conclusion. Despite our lidar scans, our robotic explorations, and our intricate theories, we are likely only seeing fragments of the pyramid's true, integrated meaning. We analyze its astronomy with one discipline, its artifacts with another, and its architecture with a third. But the people of Teotihuacan did not live in a world of such separation. For them, the movement of the stars was directly linked to the fall of rain, which was directly linked to the authority of the king, which was confirmed by the success of the harvest. The Pyramid of the Moon was the physical nexus where all these strands of reality converged. It was a single, complex idea made manifest in stone, the idea that humanity could, through a combination of precise observation, staggering effort, and the ultimate sacrifices, participate in the maintenance of the cosmos itself. We dissect its components, but they experienced it as a whole, a truth so profound and all-encompassing that its full resonance may forever remain just beyond our modern grasp. So where does this incredible journey leave us? We have ventured from the sun-drenched summit down into the dark, echoing tunnel, from the celestial dance of the Pleiades to the stark reality of the sacrificial altar. We have seen how this pyramid was far more than a singular monument. It was a layered machine of cosmic intent. It was a celestial clock tracking the seasons, a hydraulic engine pleading for water, a stage for terrifying political theater, and the sacred temple of a powerful, paradoxical goddess. Each layer of stone, each offering in the dark, each alignment with the stars reveals a civilization of profound genius, a people who sought to weave their destiny directly into the fabric of the universe through a combination of precise observation, staggering effort, and heartbreaking sacrifice. The Pyramid of the Moon stands not as a ruin but as a testament to their ambition, a frozen moment of their desperate, brilliant attempt to command the elements and speak with the gods. And yet, for all we have uncovered, the most profound truth about the Pyramid of the Moon may be that its greatest secret is its silence. We have deciphered its architecture and inventoried its offerings, but we still do not know the true name of the people who built it. We cannot hear their voices or read their words. Their rulers are ghosts, their language a mystery, and their ultimate fate a puzzle we are still piecing together. The pyramid guards the story of a civilization that mastered urban planning, astronomy, and hydraulic engineering on a colossal scale, yet chose to leave behind no written history of their kings, their conquests, or their daily lives. This magnificent structure is their autobiography, written not in ink but in stone, water, and blood, a narrative we are only just learning how to read. This enduring enigma is what makes the Pyramid of the Moon so captivating. It refuses to be pinned down to a single, simple explanation. Was it primarily a temple for a water cult? The evidence is overwhelming. Was it an instrument of political power? Undoubtedly. Was it a royal tomb? Perhaps, but not in any way we traditionally understand. The beauty of this mystery is that all these answers can be true at once, woven together into a complex tapestry of belief that challenges our modern, compartmentalized view of the world. For the Teotihuacanos, science, religion, and politics were not separate spheres. They were a unified force, and the pyramid was the ultimate expression of that unity. Its true purpose was to be the axis of their entire world, a sacred machine that kept the cosmos in motion. The adventure is far from over. With each passing year, new technologies like lidar and muon tomography peer deeper into the stone, and new excavations in the tunnel system reveal fresh chambers brimming with exotic offerings. The final door at the end of that dark passage may yet be found, and behind it could lie the answer to the oldest question of all, the resting place of the lost rulers of Teotihuacan. The pyramid has kept its deepest secret for 2,000 years, but the search continues, and the next great discovery could be just one excavation season away. This story is still being written, with every scan, every robotic probe, and every careful brushstroke adding a new sentence to a history we thought was lost. Now we turn the question over to you. After this deep dive into the heart of the mystery, what do you think was the true, overarching purpose of the Pyramid of the Moon? Was it first and foremost a monumental prayer for water in a thirsty land? The throne of a powerful goddess who demanded blood, the ultimate tool for a ruling elite to cement their power, or something else entirely that we have yet to fully comprehend? Share your own theories and insights in the comments below. We have an incredible community of history lovers here, and I am always fascinated by your perspectives. And if you want to join us as we continue to unravel the greatest mysteries of our past, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The past is waiting to be discovered, and the next chapter is just ahead.